Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is a 2016 American superhero film based on the DC Comics characters Batman and Superman. Produced by Warner Bros. Pictures, Rat Pack Dune Entertainment, DC Entertainment, Atlas Entertainment, and Cruel and Unusual Films, and distributed by Warner Bros., it is a follow-up to the 2013 film Man of Steel and the second film in the DC Extended Universe, DCEU. 10. The film was directed by Zack Snyder, written by Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer, and features an ensemble cast that includes Ben Affleck as Batman and Henry Cavill as Superman, alongside Amy Adams, Jesse Eisenberg, Diane Lane, Lawrence Fishburne, Jeremy Irons, Holly Hunter, and Gal Gadot. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is the first live-action film to feature Batman and Superman together, as well as the first live-action cinematic portrayal of Wonder Woman. In the film, criminal mastermind Lex Luthor manipulates Batman into a preemptive battle with Superman, who Luthor is obsessed with destroying. The film was announced at the 2013 San Diego Comic-Con after the release of Man of Steel. Snyder stated that the film would take inspiration from the Batman comic book series The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, but clarified that it would follow an original premise. The incarnation of Batman in the film is different from the character's previous portrayal by Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy, serving as a cinematic reboot of the character. The film is also inspired by narrative elements from The Death of Superman. Pre-production began at East Los Angeles College in October 2013, and principal photography started in May 2014 in Detroit. Additional filming also took place in Illinois and New Mexico, concluding that December. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice premiered at the Auditorio Nacional in Mexico City on March 19, 2016, and was released in the United States on March 25, 2016. Following a strong debut that set new box office records, the film experienced a historic drop in its second weekend and never recovered. Although it grossed $873.6 million worldwide, making it the seventh highest-grossing film of 2016, it performed below expectations and was not well received from critics. An extended cut, dubbed the Ultimate Edition, features 31 minutes of additional footage and was released to home media formats later in 2016. Plot: in a flashback to his childhood, Bruce Wayne runs from his parents' funeral. He falls into a cave where a circling vortex of bats elevates him back to the surface. In the present, 18 months after his cataclysmic battle with General Zod in Metropolis, a Superman has become a controversial figure. Bruce is now a billionaire who has operated in Gotham City as the masked vigilante Batman for 20 years. Having witnessed the battle in person, he sees Superman as an existential threat to humanity. Clark Kent, Superman's civilian identity, seeks to condemn Batman's form of justice in Daily Planet articles. Bruce learns that Russian weapon trafficker Anatoly Knyazov has been contacting LexCorp mogul Lex Luthor. Luthor attempts to persuade Senator June Finch to allow him to import kryptonite discovered in the aftermath of Zod's terraforming attempt so that it can be used as a deterrent against future Kryptonian threats. She declines, but Luthor makes alternative plans with Finch's subordinate, who grants him access to Zod's corpse and the Kryptonian scout ship. Bruce attends a gala at LexCorp to steal encrypted data from the company's mainframe, but antiquities dealer Diana Prince steals it first. She later returns it to Bruce. While decrypting the drive, Bruce dreams of a post-apocalyptic world where he leads rebels against an evil Superman. He is awakened by an unidentified person appearing through a portal, who tells him that Lois Lane is the key and urges him to find the others before vanishing. The decrypted drive reveals Luthor's files on several metahumans across the globe. One is Diana, who appears in a photo from World War I. Wayne contemplates weaponizing the kryptonite to go to war with Superman. A widely publicized congressional hearing, led by Finch, is held to question Superman's actions against Zod. A bomb smuggled in by Luthor detonates, killing everyone present except Superman. Superman blames himself for not detecting it in time and self-imposes exile. In response, Batman breaks into LexCorp and steals the kryptonite. He builds a powered exoskeleton, a kryptonite grenade launcher, and a kryptonite-tipped spear. Meanwhile, Luthor enters the Kryptonian ship and accesses its vast database of technology. Luthor lures Superman out of exile by kidnapping Martha Kent, Clark's adoptive mother, and Lois, who he pushes off the LexCorp building. Superman saves Lois and confronts Luthor, who reveals that the distrust between Batman and Superman was manipulated. Luthor demands that he kill Batman in exchange for Martha's life. Superman tries to explain this to Batman, who instead attacks and eventually subdues him using a kryptonite gas. As Batman prepares to deal the final blow using the spear, Superman pleads with him to save Martha, the same name as Batman's mother. Batman hesitates in confusion as Lois arrives and explains what Superman meant. Coming to his senses, Batman locates and rescues Martha. Luthor executes his backup plan, unleashing a monster genetically engineered using DNA from both Zod's body and his own. Diana joins Batman and Superman in their fight against the creature. Superman realizes its vulnerability to kryptonite and fatally impales the creature with the kryptonite spear. Superman, already weakened by kryptonite exposure, is fatally wounded by the creature before it dies. Following Luthor's arrest, Batman confronts him in prison, warning him that he will always be watching. Luthor gloats that Superman's death has made the world vulnerable to powerful alien threats. A memorial is held for Superman in Metropolis, while Bruce and Diana attend a funeral for Clark, who was also declared dead. Martha gives Lois an envelope containing an engagement ring from Clark. Bruce tells Diana that he regrets failing Superman and asks for her help in forming a team of metahumans to protect Earth in Superman's absence. As they leave, the dirt atop Clark's coffin levitates. Cast. Further information: list of DC Extended Universe cast members and characters of the DC Extended Universe. Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, Batman. A billionaire socialite and owner of Wayne Enterprises, who dedicates himself to protecting Gotham City from its criminal underworld as a highly trained masked vigilante. The Batsuit in this film is made of a form-fitting fabric as opposed to the armored suits in previous portrayals, and a mechanical suit is also featured, which Batman uses in his fight against Superman. On Batman's suit, Zack Snyder commented, "I had a really strong idea about what I wanted to do. I really wanted to do sort of a fabric-based Batman, not what's become the more normal, armored Batman. That's how we evolved it." Unlike previous versions who spoke in a deeper voice as Batman, this version uses a voice modulator to distort his real voice. Affleck stated a well-known billionaire would likely have his voice recognized. When asked what makes this Batman different from the previous portrayals, Affleck said this Batman is a little older, he's a little more world-weary. He's been around the block once or twice, so he's a little wiser, but he's definitely more cynical and a little darker and more jaded. Adding that Batman has gotten more exposed to the violence and the criminal element of that world over time. The film's Batman was influenced by Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which shows Batman in his 50s. Snyder said, "I definitely wanted an older Batman. I wanted a war-weary Batman. That's why, in a lot of ways, Ben was really perfect for me. We kind of aged him a little bit. It worked really great. I'm really excited about the Batman we created." On Affleck's casting as Batman, Snyder said, "Ben provides an interesting counterbalance to Henry's Superman. He has the acting chops to create a layered portrayal of a man who is older and wiser than Clark Kent and bears the scars of a seasoned crime fighter, but retain the charm that the world sees in billionaire Bruce Wayne." Affleck praised Snyder for tackling the impact of the destruction caused in Metropolis in the previous installment, saying, "One of the things I liked was Zack's idea of showing accountability and the consequences of violence, and seeing that there are real people in those buildings," adding, "And in fact, one of those buildings was Bruce Wayne's, Henry Cavill as Clark Kent." Superman, a Metropolis-based Kryptonian survivor and a journalist for the Daily Planet who uses his extraterrestrial abilities to protect humanity. Superman's suit in Batman v Superman is somewhat similar to that in Man of Steel, but with enhanced high-tech style surface detail and a shinier, more metallic-looking cape. A quote written in Kryptonian was added into Superman's symbol, which says, "Where we had thought to stand alone, we will be with all the world." 21. The film addresses the destruction caused by Superman and Zod in Metropolis, a part of Man of Steel that was criticized for being too extensive for Superman. To which Snyder responded, "I was surprised because that's the thesis of Superman for me, that you can't just have superheroes knock around and have there be no consequences." On what the public perception of Superman is in the film, Cavill said, "In this movie, everyone has split into different directions as to how they feel about this alien," adding, "Some people love him, some hate him. Other people fear him. Is he a tyrant?" When asked how Superman has evolved since Man of Steel, Cavill said, "Superman himself isn't that different. He does, however, have to deal with a new set of problems because he's now been revealed to the world. This film is more about how the world in general, and Batman in particular, sees this alien, and less about the evolution of Superman." Cavill described Superman and Batman as being the two sides of the same coin. They have the same goal, but use very different methods to achieve it. Understandably, that leads them to clash with one another, and their conflict is a historic moment. Amy Adams as Lois Lane, a reporter for the Daily Planet and love interest of Clark Kent. About her role, Adams stated that Lois is still sort of like the key to the information. She's the girl going out and getting it and figuring it out and putting it together and all of that, so she's very much involved. When asked on her thoughts on portraying Lois Lane in the film, Adams replied, "I love that she's fearless. I'm not that way, so it's really fun that she really is not afraid of the consequences." On Lois Lane and Clark Kent's relationship in the film, Adams said, "What's great about this is that, as far as the relationship with Lois and Clark goes, when we meet them, you can tell that they've been in a relationship for a while," further explaining, "So it was great to get to develop that sort of intimacy and that sort of friendship that I've developed with Henry, to get to bring that to the screen." She also described Clark Kent as being Lois Lane's connection to humanity and said, "She may have some tunnel vision, but she's got a job and moral standards. When we met her before, she would do anything to get the story. Now Clark has instilled some faith in humanity in her. Her relationship with Clark is the closest thing she has to anything faith-based, although moving in with Clark brings issues." Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, an eccentric young businessman and hereditary CEO of LexCorp, who is obsessed with defeating Superman Luthor, is usually depicted as bald in the comics, while the film's version of Luthor depicts him with hair throughout the majority of the film. When speaking about his portrayal of Luthor compared to previous portrayals, Eisenberg said, "When you're doing a movie like this and playing a character that's already been played, the further away it is from those previous incarnations, the better," adding, "Because chances are, especially with a guy like Gene Hackman or Kevin Spacey, you're not going to get favorably compared." Eisenberg explained his character's background as having a core of reality, saying, "Luthor has a backstory that's tragic and an emotional inner life that's authentic. That's in the movie. It was my interest in playing the character with a real emotional core, and this writer, Chris Terrio's interest in creating a character that seemed viable in reality." On Luthor's behavior and attitude towards Superman, Eisenberg said, "He is a narcissist of the first order, but complicated in that way as well, in that he is terribly troubled and competitive and vengeful. He looks at Superman not as somebody to destroy, but as genuine threat to humanity. F-ways, Luthor is more of a stretch than any character you would do in an independent movie, which is normally the place you stretch. So in that way, it was not at all compromised. If anything, it was the best, most advantageous role I've ever been given. The opportunity to do an interesting character on a movie of that scale is incredibly rare." Eisenberg describes a theme in the film, saying, "It raises the question of how one man can have so much power. These are the kind of things that we talk about authoritarian states. They're addressing geopolitics in this movie, and not in a way that's pretentious or esoteric." Diane Lane as Martha Kent, Clark's adoptive mother, 24. On her role as Superman's mother, Lane stated, "I always said if I had a son, that would be the ultimate test. Raise a good man. There's something noble about that." When asked on her experience working with Zack Snyder on Batman v Superman, Lane said she was impressed by Snyder's imagination and added, "Who gets offered the opportunity to bring such things to the screen for millions of people? That's tremendous. It's an honor and a burden, and I can't imagine shouldering that load. On Martha Kent's support for her son Superman, Lane stated, I think that she's reminding him he does have a choice, further explaining, he doesn't have to be yoked to this destiny. He can actually feel the pleasure of making the choice. Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet and Clark and Lois's boss before. When asked about reprising his role in the film, Fishburne said, I was happy to come back to the character. I got really excited when I read it, and I saw what was at the center at the movie, which was this huge fight between these two titans. On Perry White's role in the film, Fishburne said, he's dealing with the fact that his medium looks like it's going the way of the dinosaurs, so that's a difficult position to be in. Adding, the good news is he's got a great reporter like Lois Lane and a new great reporter like Clark Kent who are interested and hungry to do the job. Describing Perry White's working relationship with Lois Lane, Fishburne stated, she's my favorite child and she's my problem child. On his experience filming and his characters' interactions, Fishburne said, it was really just a couple of days in the beginning with Lois, Clark, and Perry. And the rest was just me with Lois, figuring out how to get her where she needed to go. But the relationships, I think, were established really well in Man of Steel. Jeremy Irons as Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce Wayne's butler, chief of security and trusted confidant, 29. Irons described his take on Alfred Pennyworth as being quite a different Alfred than we have seen so far. Zack Snyder had very clear views about what he wanted. I would just say he's more hands-on, perhaps, than just a butler. 40. When asked what makes his Alfred different from previous portrayals, Irons said, Zack Snyder, the director, wanted to create a completely different Alfred, so I felt I didn't have to carry any baggage from previous ones. It's sort of a reincarnation, if you'd like. I had a feeling I was creating my own Alfred, more of a man who can actually do anything if he has to. According to Irons, Alfred is a bit of a grease monkey, and he's very involved in the decisions Bruce makes. On how Alfred would be in the film, Irons stated, he has an interesting history. He's a very competent man. He's the sort of man I think anyone would like to be married to. He can sort of do everything, change light bulbs, blow up bridges if he has to. Holly Hunter as June Finch, United States Senator from Kentucky, who heads the political argument on Superman and his actions. Describing her experience on being in the film, Hunter said, it was really fun to be part of a giant, massive piece of machinery, headed up by Zack Snyder, who is thoroughly at home in that uber-mega environment. Most people would have a nervous breakdown with that kind of pressure, and he's enthralled. When asked how she got involved in the film, Hunter said, Zack asked me. He came to me with an offer, and I was like, yeah, that would be fun. It's fun to mix it up. I have scenes with Superman. He looks phenomenal. And to see Ben Affleck, who plays Batman, and Henry Cavill, who plays Superman, together is quite formidable. On acting in a superhero film, Hunter stated, being somebody who's like a theater geek that I am, I can just go right back to Aeschylus and Euripides and Sophocles. They were writing about gods and goddesses versus humans, and how gods could distort, pervert, or help people get what they want. And so for me, this didn't feel foreign because that was the translation that it went through for me. That was my filter. On her character's views on Superman, Hunter stated, what is her problem with Superman? That absolute power corrupts absolutely. When power is acting autonomously, unilaterally, with no legislation, with no boundaries, with no law, except for the ones that he deems in his own mind, that can be detrimental. Describing her character, Hunter said, I thought that, as a senator, she brought her femaleness to the job in how she listened, in her curiosity, in her ability to evaluate, adding, it felt very female to me. Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, an immortal Amazonian warrior who is the crown princess of Themyscira. Wonder Woman's suit is made out of chrome-painted polyurethane, and she uses her hand wraps and sword harnesses. Gadot described her character as having many strengths and powers, but at the end of the day, she's a woman with a lot of emotional intelligence. Describing Wonder Woman's compassion, Gadot stated, it's all her heart, that's her strength. I think women are amazing for being able to show what they feel. I admire women who do. On her thoughts on portraying Wonder Woman, Gadot said, Wonder Woman, She's amazing. I love everything that she represents and everything that she stands for. She's all about love and compassion and truth and justice and equality, and she's a whole lot of woman.